A lot of people have asked me to make a video of the earlier years that I spent with my wife, Amanda, who passed away from alcoholism a little over 4 years ago. And I decided it's probably a good idea because you hear so many stories about the end of her life. But there was really a very good relationship, and there was by far, better years than there were worse years. I think it's one of the reasons we stayed together, and I stayed, because there's always the hope that the person will be able to get better and return to those good years. And there were many, many good years. In fact, we met in a company called FHP. It was Medicare Advantage. We sold insurance. We met in the office, and eventually, through other, friends that we had, we got together. I think our first date was when I got my dog. We went to the pound. She had a dog by the name of Sammy, and my dog was Chester. And our first date was picking up Chester because I had just bought a new house. And I think originally we ended up living together because I had just bought a house in East Highlands Ranch, and I had bought some furniture. She had helped me go shopping for this bedroom set that I bought. And eventually, I didn't take into account how big the bedroom set was. And when it arrived, most of it didn't even fit in the bedroom of my house. It was this massive bed, and then there was 2 nightstands and 2 dressers, and those didn't even fit in the room. So she laughed and it goes, well, my house in Canyon Lake is a lot bigger. Maybe we should move there. And ultimately, that's how we ended up living together, because of this particular bedroom set that I had purchased, and it was way too big for my house. It's funny, I only lived in that house for about 3 months. I ended up renting it for another 6 years before I ended up selling it. But we moved to her house, and she was renting her dad's house. It was a beautiful house up on the hill in Canyon Lake. We had a private dock. We had a 12-man pontoon boat, a private beach. It was just a beautiful area. And we lived there a couple of years, and then we eventually got married in '94, and we bought the house that year from her parents. And we lived in it. We had wonderful years in our 30s. I was 32 when we got married. We both were. And we lived there till I was in my early 40s. And we had wonderful times there. We had many friends. A lot of our sales friends came over. And it was really a very nice community. We actually lived next to some famous people, famous actors. And it was just a wonderful time in our lives. It was the 2 of us and our 2 dogs. And then around 2000, we had our son. I guess it was about 6 years into the marriage, we finally had our son, Griffin. It was just really a wonderful time. There was never a bad time. We never argued. She drank a glass of wine here or there, and it was becoming bottles by the time Griffin was born. But there really was no issue, and I obviously didn't recognize it as any huge issue. It was just part of who she was. I think one of the funniest stories is when we found out she was pregnant with our son. She took a test, and obviously it came back positive. And I remember standing in the living room upstairs, and she goes, "Whatever you do, don't tell anybody. Let's keep it a secret for a while. I just want us to know it." And of course, that lasted a long time with me, because I remember our dog was at the end of the dock and he was barking. Eventually, we had to have him debark because he had this huge booming voice. And some of our friends that lived on the other side of the lake were going by on a boat. And I remember running down the stairs, and then it went to the dock just so I could quiet the dog down because his voice echoed all over the lake. And my friends went by and they said, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "Hey, I got some great news. Amanda's pregnant." And I remember her at the top deck looking down going, "You kept that secret for all of 30 seconds. Thanks." I just remember those kind of times. There was always that wonderful back and forth. And you always hope that those are going to return. But those were good times. And back then, it seemed like every weekend was like a day at Disneyland. We'd have friends over, and we'd take people out on boat rides. The lake was about 15 miles around. You could go for hours, tool around, and just party or just wave to other people and talk to other people at the end of the docks. It was a very unique community. And really a wonderful, wonderful time. And I think back of that decade that we lived there is probably the happiest times in my life, certainly. And then we had Griffin, which kind of capped it all off. And that took us up until about 2002. We lived there from '92 to about 2002. And again, that's the story of our real early years, and they were really wonderful times. Again, thanks for listening. Again, I just want to point out that I go live Monday through Friday around 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and the Facebook group is called "There's an Alcoholic in the Family." And again, thanks for listening.